Football. It's widely regarded as America's favorite sport. And some would argue it's the greatest team sport in the world. It's a game that involves a lot of collision and a lot of speed, and different athletes of different types come together. And sometimes the ball takes unexpected bounces. Football is a game that teaches people, those who engage in it, a lot of different life lessons. So that's the forum that I came through. And some of the lessons I learned were things like when hard work always beats talent when talent refuses to work. Or when you do something in life, you're only going to get out something that's proportional to whatever you put in. So these are some of the lessons. It's also a forum where I learned that I needed to learn to depend on God. So football taught me a lot of lessons, but there's one particular lesson that I learned playing football that applies universally to everybody in this room. And I'm going to share that with you today. It's the key of how to go from struggling to surplus and how to thrive. Is that okay if I share that with you? Okay, so I grew up, like many other people in this country, watching football. So my routine was pretty simple. Monday through Friday, I went to school. Saturday morning, I'd wake up with my little brother, who at the time was probably 2 or 3 years old, and we'd watch college football. Sunday, wake up, go to church, come home, watch NFL football. And then Monday night, of course, was Monday Night Football. And then we'd rinse and repeat, and we'd do that pretty much from September till about February every year. And so that's my background. And so with that background, you can imagine how elated I was when I found out that I was going to receive a full scholarship to play football at Northern Illinois University. So let me put this in context a little bit. See, I grew up in Canada. And in Canada, the schools don't offer athletic scholarships. So the pinnacle of achievement for a high school football player is to receive a fully paid Division I football scholarship in the U.S. So I was extremely excited. I can still imagine the day when I signed that letter of intent, and I started having all of these imaginations about what was going to happen. It was so clear to me. So I was going to come on campus. Within about a week or two, I would crack the starting lineup. And then that season, I would lead our team to a championship. I'd stick around probably a year, maybe 2 more years after that. But I'd definitely declare early for the NFL draft. I'd be drafted in the first round, maybe the second. And of course, my pro career would be amazing. I would be a Pro Bowler, lead my team to a Super Bowl, and then retire eventually and be inducted to the Hall of Fame. So all of this was clear to me, and it was all determined before I even set foot on campus for my college career. Well, it turned out that the ball was going to bounce a different way. Because you see, halfway through my first college season, we began losing. And that losing eventually turned into what would become, at that time, the longest losing streak in the nation. It was 23 games, and it spanned 3 seasons. So, needless to say, it was tough. Has anybody ever experienced the embarrassment and disappointment of being on a losing team? By a show of hands? Okay, good. So I'm not alone. Now let's take all that, put it together, and that's how I felt. Very, very embarrassed. I mean, there's nothing worse and more demoralizing than waking up on a Saturday morning, wiping that crust out of your eye, picking up the remote control and turning on the TV just to see yourself on the wrong side of a highlight reel that's being broadcast on ESPN. It was pretty demoralizing, and definitely not what I would consider thriving. Can we agree on that? All right. So that season we went 3-8, and our coach was obviously fired, and within about 2 or 3 weeks they ushered in a new coaching staff. And this staff, when they showed up, let's suffice it to say that it was clear they were not there to make friends. They came in with their agenda, and these guys were tough. It was almost as if they went to a tough man competition and recruited all the meanest looking characters and said, hey, we're assembling a staff and we need you to come. And without a doubt, the toughest of the bunch was my coach, Coach Mallory. And I still remember they used to have conversations with us, and they'd say things like, Patrick, I want you to get your priorities straight. Around here, education always comes first. Football is second. So it was clear what our priorities were around there. And I can remember the first day of winter conditioning when I came into a room, a big gymnasium, bigger than this, and I saw that there were buckets strategically placed throughout. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I know we got cones, and we're going to probably do some drills and run around cones and stuff, but what are the buckets for? Well, it wasn't long before I found out. See, the buckets were for when you were working out and you reached the point where you felt like you had to vomit, you could go ahead and do it there and then hurry up and get back in the drill. I mean, we couldn't even put our hands on our knees to recuperate in between drills. We got punished for that. So you can imagine the adversity that we were going through at that time. And it was during that adversity that our numbers started to thin out. There were a lot of guys who were falling by the wayside, quitting and all that. And looking back on it, what the coaches were doing was they were separating the guys who were committed from the uncommitted. So it was a test. And I have to admit, there was a point when I considered quitting. But I had to remember where I came from. I had to remember my family that I left in another country. And my little brother, who we used to watch football together, he was watching me. So I couldn't quit. And we kept going. And it was at that low point that we finally discovered what this formula is that I'll share with you today about how to thrive in the face of adversity. So what we realized at that time was that if we were going to thrive, we would have to learn to fight. We have to learn to fight. And now when I say that, I know most of you are thinking, what he's saying is, oh yeah, you got to fight through the adversity and fight through the pressure. And yes, to some degree that is what I'm saying, but the fight that I'm talking about is actually an acronym, F-I-T-E. Not F-I-G-H-T, F-I-T-E. So let me explain what that means. So first of all, the F is fun. In anything you do, you have to make sure that there's some level of fun you're having in it. And we knew that for us to be able to thrive, we were going to have to get back to the point where we were having fun again. It's too hard and life is too long to be doing things, well, too short, actually, to be doing things that you don't derive some level of pleasure in doing. And so we had to fall in love with the process. If you're going to be successful at anything, you've got to love the process of going through it and not just thinking about the end goal and sacrificing everything along the way. So the I stands for improvement. You have to get into a mindset of making incremental improvements. If you're going to go from struggling to surplus, you've got to make up a huge gap, okay? And that gap is going to be a gradual process. Rome was not built in a day, and neither will your dreams happen overnight. So you have to enjoy the process, and you have to take pleasure in the little wins. The T stands for teamwork. We had to support each other, right? We had to do things as a team. Nothing great is ever accomplished by an individual. It always takes teamwork to make the dream work. And finally, the E stands for excellence. We had to set our standard higher than any external individual could ever impose on us. We imposed a higher standard on ourselves. So with that said, we finally continued to fight, and we were able to turn things around. We, sometime on a rainy afternoon in my senior year, we broke that losing streak. We went 2-10 that year, and I still remember the crowd coming down from the stands. It was like we won the Super Bowl. They tore down the goalposts, and they dragged them across campus and threw them into the lagoon. And so it was amazing. I finished my career with a grand total of 6 wins. But now, fast forward 17 years. I'm in Miami. It's New Year's Eve, or New Year's Day. I'm in Miami, and I'm there to watch a football game with my older brother. The team we're watching is led by a Heisman Trophy finalist. And another member of that team is my little brother, the one who used to watch me. The team that they're playing for is none other than my own NIU Huskies. So if you can imagine pride, roll all that together, and that's the kind of pride I felt that day. See, what we didn't realize when we hit rock bottom back then is that by fighting, F-I-T-E-ing, what we were doing was we weren't just building our own future, but we were actually laying a foundation and a legacy that other people could build on for the future also. So some of you are going through that right now, and some of you may be looking to go from struggle to surplus. And what you need to realize is that every day, if you wake up and decide that you are going to fight, then you too will lay a legacy. So life is like this football. It's going to bounce in a whole lot of different ways. But if you can focus on the fight on a daily basis, you'll be able to persevere. Thank you very much.